Words are cheap, so why not use them? Listen, I get it. Everyone's always screaming at you to keep your word counts down, to be concise. I mean, in last week's show, I was saying that poetry should use the fewest words possible. So what am I doing today, showing up and saying that words are cheap and that you should feel comfortable using them in abundance?
That kind of inconsistency is going to cost you what's left of your credibility.
But is it inconsistency? For one, we know that writing and rhetoric are all about contextual awareness and adapting to your situation. What works at one point in time and space might not work in another. And now this might really shock you all, but different people have different opinions about things. There isn't and cannot be only one good way to write. And this tension is nothing new. In his work on Copia of Words and Ideas, Erasmus of Rotterdam points to classical criticisms of canonical writers like Stesichorus, Aeschylus, Seneca, and Cicero for being too wordy. But beyond those overly elaborate writers, Erasmus also points out that others, like the prominent teacher Quintilian, just didn't object to a more abundant style. So what is there to be gained from saying that all writing should be as plain and concise as possible? Well, the idea that Erasmus has is that writers can benefit from developing copia, from practicing a more abundant and complex writing style. On Copia presents the idea that writers can and should practice a wider variety of ways to say things. By putting in some work to expand your expressive range and enrich your style, you'll improve your communication skills and refine your writing, even if you decide to stick with a plainer style in the end. So today, I want to show you Erasmus's program for building a more copious writing style. Now, if you're like some people who have fully imbibed the plain and concise Kool-Aid, otherwise known as unfiltered municipal tap water, you might wonder why you'd ever want to practice a more varied and complex style. Lucky for us, Erasmus explains that practicing or developing copia can help writers to avoid needless repetition, tedium, and monotony. Speaking of the value of variety, he writes, "Nature herself especially rejoices in variety. In such a great throng of things, she has left nothing anywhere not painted with some wonderful artifice of variety. And just as the eye is held more by a varying scene, in the same the mind always eagerly examines whatever it sees as new. And if all things continually present themselves to the mind without variation, it will at once turn away in disgust. Thus the whole profit of a speech is lost." In other words, nature is full of variety, and variety is engaging. So if you just stick with the same old ways of saying things and repeating the same phrases over and over in your writing, your readers will not only get bored, but maybe even grow disgusted. And you don't want a disgusted audience, do you?
No, that's our demographic. Get your own audience.
Anyway, in order to achieve copia and turn your writing away from its slow march to sad millennial gray, Erasmus encourages writers to practice finding multiple ways to rearticulate their ideas. And he walks readers through various classical methods for building sentences in different ways. You can use synonyms. You can try using different grammatical forms of the same word. You can use antonomasia, periphrasis, metaphor, catachresis, metonymy, metalepsis, hyperbole. And unless I'm hearing things, all of that might put you in mind of the Quintilian Institute of Words About Words, a reliable partner of the Writing with Andrews show. So if you've been following their long-running series on the channel, you'll already be familiar with some of these stylistic tools for adding variety and abundance to your writing. Anyway, we could work through all the options and tools that rhetoricians have cataloged over the centuries, but the basic idea is this. Find what you want to say, and then find as many different ways to say it as you can. Do that, and you're on your way to developing a style marked by copia. And Erasmus leads the charge in that regard with a rhetorical stunt for the ages, where he presents almost 200 different ways to say, "Your letter has delighted me very much," such as these. "In a wonderful way, your letter has delighted me. In an unusually wonderful way, your letter has delighted me. Your epistle has cheered me exceedingly. In truth, by your epistle I have been exceedingly cheered. Your note has refreshed my spirit in no indifferent manner. What you wrote has brought me the deepest delight. From what you wrote, the deepest joy has been brought me. From the letter of your excellency we have drunk a great joy. By no means common joy has come to me from what you wrote. Through your letter I have been imbued with an unusual delight. Your letter provided me with no little delight. I have been exceedingly delighted by reading your letter. Your epistle was very delightful. What you wrote was the keenest delight to me. Your epistle was an incredible pleasure to me. Your epistle was immeasurably pleasing to me. You would scarcely believe how greatly I enjoy what you wrote. When I received your letter, an incredible joy seized my spirit. Your epistle caressed me with extraordinary pleasure. That you sent a letter to me was exceedingly pleasant. Your dear letter has made me rejoice exceedingly. That you have informed me by your letter is not only acceptable to me, but in truth delightful. You should have seen me transported by the extent of my joy when your letter reached me. Not unpleasing to me was your letter. Your by no means disagreeable letter has come to me. I have received your letter not without the keenest pleasure. He who handed me your letter brought me a heap of joys. It is wonderful to say how your letter has taken hold of me. I have received the letter you sent. It lightens my heart with a new light of joys. Whatever there was of sadness in my heart, your letter cast out straightway. Your letter has made me laden with joys. I took unique pleasure in your letter. Directly I saw your letter, I smoothed the brow of my spirit. While I looked at your letter, an extraordinary multitude of joys seized my mind. I call the muses to witness that nothing has ever before brought me more joy than your letter. What laughter, what applause, what exultant dancing your letter caused me. Nothing dearer than your letter has ever happened to me. When the letter carrier handed me your letter, my spirit at once began to thrill with an ineffable joy. How gladly I received your letter. Your letter was pure honey to me. What clover is to bees, what willow boughs are to goats, what honey is to the bear, your letter is to me. What you wrote seems nothing but pure charm to me, and so on and so on. Well, again, let's remember that this is for practice. This is an exercise in building your stylistic range and expanding your expressive repertoire, more than it is a serious exercise in letter writing. But you can be sure that even if you don't use all these, the practice would do a lot to make the openings of your letters a little more interesting. And you could even consider this a revision exercise. Are you having trouble getting the first sentence of your novel just right? Well, write 100 different versions and then pick the best one. I think one of the best side effects of developing a Copia style is that it reminds you that your sentences aren't stuck when you write them down. You always have options and nothing is final until you hit send or publish. And for any of you out there who may think that some of these really are absurd and that Erasmus is doing unreasonable things, well, he's way ahead of you. As he says, if any of these appear to be of such a sort as would scarcely be considered suitable in prose, remember that this exercise is adapted to the composition of verse also. Maybe some of these aren't how you would start a letter, but that doesn't mean the practice couldn't help you to write a more interesting poem. There's no harm in trying something new because, again, words are cheap. You could hardly find a more economical hobby than working out 200 different ways to write the same sentence. But maybe you're not convinced. Erasmus seemed to be aware of the fact that there were people out there who were committed to the mild Farina school of prose style and would object to his advocacy for something more elaborate. Actually, I just think it's pretty funny to see how even writing in the Renaissance, Erasmus was dealing with the same kinds of complaints that I occasionally see in the comments here. I can picture it now. This is terrible advice. My dad is an editor, and I grew up hearing him complain about wordy writing my entire life. Word count, people, word count. The publication industry doesn't have time for this nonsense. But these things, as I said, don't at all concern me, who indeed am not prescribing how one should write and speak, but am pointing out what to do for training, where, as everyone knows, all things ought to be exaggerated. Then I am instructing youth, in whom extravagance of speech does not seem wrong to Quintilian, because with judgment superfluities are easily restrained. Certain of them even age itself wears away. While on the other hand, you cannot by any method cure meagerness and poverty. Engineer here, this video could have been half as long. All these flowery words don't matter. Just get to the point in simple, straightforward terms and move on. Elegance consists partly in words used by suitable authors, partly in using the right word, and partly in using it in the right expression. What clothing is to our body, diction is to the expression of our thoughts. For just as the fine appearance and dignity of the body are either set off to advantage or disfigured by dress and habit, just so thought is by words. Accordingly, they err greatly who think that it matters nothing in what words something is expressed, provided only it is in some way understandable. As an English major, I just want you to know that you are wrong. I have taken a survey of British literature and read many passages from many books. And I'm working on a novel, so I would know that it's really important to be concise. And not only that, but you should be plain and simple because all the greats wrote like that. Like there's Hemingway and well, there's just so many others too. So I just want to point out that your argument that writers should develop a Copia style is way off base and just flat out wrong. If everybody took your bad advice, the cost of ink and paper would go through the roof and it would accelerate the decline of civilization. I just don't know how you live with yourself. No artist will better compress speech to conciseness than he who has skill to enrich the same with as varied an ornamentation as possible. For as far as conciseness of speech is concerned, who could speak more tersely than he who has ready at hand an extensive array of words and figures from which he can immediately select what is most suitable for conciseness? Anyway, you get the idea. No writer can escape the voices of critics past and future. They were hanging over Erasmus's shoulder, they hang over mine, and they're probably hanging over yours too. Just remember, don't let the bloviating windbags who think they know something bully you into thinking you don't. The point is that however people might complain about the advice to write in a more abundant or copious style, those complaints represent an opinion, not the truth. And more importantly, this is about practice. We're training a skill. You can and should write a lot of things that you never intend to publish, and you can improve your writing skills by trying out multiple styles and methods, even if you end up not sticking with some of them. Like Erasmus said, practicing all the ways to express yourself will make you better at expressing yourself concisely. But don't let a made-up preference for plainness be a cover for a failure of skill. You know, the writing world can be a strange place, and that's probably mostly because writers can be strange people, but it's also because there are so many rules and overly strong opinions about what writing should be, as if writing sentences were a matter of life or death. But there's nothing at stake. Writing concisely does not make you a better or morally superior writer any more than writing more splashily does. Sure, maybe you can do a lot with your box of 8 crayons, but just think of all the art you could create with 64 or even more. So give it a try. The worst that can happen is that you shake yourself out of a stylistic rut and expand the tool set that you have to work with when you write for real. Because there's nothing at stake, there's no reason to take it too seriously, so keep on writing and then keep on finding different ways to keep on writing. And if you want a place to start, maybe try iterating on this sentence. This was a great video in the comments, just for, like no particular reason, and let's see what you can come up with. In the meantime, good luck, be well, and we'll see you in the next one.